All right, with all the massive news that came out this last week having to do with Greg Glassman and CrossFit HQ, a lot of people have been speculating on whether or not the 2020 CrossFit Games will actually happen. But then Dave Castro got named the new CEO of CrossFit. The CrossFit Games director is now the CEO of CrossFit, so a lot of people are now wondering if the games will actually happen, how they'll look, all of that. Unfortunately, within the last 36 hours, even more allegations to CrossFit HQ's culture and Greg Glassman have come out that makes the likelihood of this year's games happening even more slim. We saw this last week when the news came out on Greg Glassman's email to Rocket CrossFit, his infamous tweet. We saw over 10 athletes come out on Instagram or Twitter posting a black screen that simply just said, "I'm out." And then they posted a caption that essentially said why they're going to be out of this year's CrossFit Games unless changes are met. Christy Ramos said on her Instagram, "My participation in the 2020 CrossFit Games will be contingent on major changes being made in the leadership of CrossFit. If I'm not comfortable associating the business we own with the current state and leadership of CrossFit, then I to myself will not support or participate under the CrossFit events held by this leadership." Now, this is very similar to what a lot of the other athletes said this last week once the email and tweet came out. Since then, we haven't heard a lot from a lot of these athletes since Dave Castro was named CEO. I think a lot of the athletes are simply just waiting to see, what goes on, what changes are made, if any. Well, now even more allegations and news have come out that really puts the chances of this year's games even more at risk. The first person to make a statement on their social media having to do with these new allegations that came out about CrossFit HQ and Greg Glassman was Katrin David's daughter. Since then, Brooke Wells has posted something having to do with this, and a fellow Team BPN athlete of mine, Cole Sagar, he's even now posted this. Katrin said on her Instagram, "I am out. I will not be competing in the 2020 CrossFit Games, and until further changes have been met, I will not represent this sport. If you have not had a chance to, I suggest you listen to Andy Stump's most recent podcast on the culture that has lived at CrossFit HQ. I am disgusted beyond words. I want it to be heard that this is not what we, the community, stand for. These actions of one man and those who idly sat by and watched this happen have tainted our sport and our community. We do not represent this. This is not who I am. My moral compass and the values I stand for make it an easy decision for me to make. I am out. The only way I see forward is a blank slate. Greg, plus those who stood by while this happened, cannot be part of CrossFit." Now, this is more of a solidified stance than what a lot of the athletes had already put out. Now, more of the athletes are putting a really, really solidified stance on that until changes are really made. A lot of people think that, because Greg Glassman still owns 100% of the company, that Dave Castro is going to be his puppet, no changes are really going to be met. Well, with these new allegations, more athletes have come out and solidified their fact that they're not competing in this year's games. So I listened to Andy Stump's Cleared Hot podcast, the one that was referenced in that Instagram post, and it made some very, very serious allegations. I'm not going to go into the exact specifics of the allegations, but they're different than what came out last week with, the racism, the email to Rocket CrossFit. These are completely different allegations that are frankly just as bad as what came out last week. And it shows the absolute despicable state of the culture right now at CrossFit HQ. Andy Stump worked at CrossFit, I believe, from 2010 to 2015, and he left because of the culture at CrossFit and what was going on behind the scenes. Now, he made some very serious allegations to Greg Glassman and those that essentially just idly stood by, that if this does come out, because he made very general statements that weren't very specific, I encourage you to go listen to the podcast. It's only about 30 minutes. He made some very general statements that you get the gist of what he's referencing, that if this does come out, and there's a good chance it will, I don't see a way CrossFit HQ can survive, period. Now, it might mean that the only way for CrossFit HQ to survive long term is for them to come out and address these allegations or make some serious, serious changes. A lot of people think that, as long as Greg Glassman is 100% the owner, no changes are really going to be met. Or if the changes are met, they're not going to be serious enough to really, really turn around and help the affiliates, help the athletes themselves, all of that. Now, a great point that Andy made in his podcast is that Dave Castro is someone that people love to hate within CrossFit. Dave Castro, love him or hate him, he's kind of the villain, at least within the CrossFit Games world. And so a lot of people right now are just jumping the gun saying he's not going to be good for CrossFit. Andy said, let's give Dave a chance, and I do agree with this. I say, right now, we give Dave Castro a chance, see what he does moving forward. It might be that, he is a puppet and we don't see any changes, or it might be that, he does a great job with a smooth transition, changes that actually need to be made for the affiliates, all of that. With that being said, Dave Castro was the games director, and as of what we still know, he still is the games director, but he's now the CEO of CrossFit. He's got bigger problems on his plate than just managing the CrossFit Games, and that's why I think there's even a more slim chance that the games actually happen. First off, now they've got this transition they're having to make and trying to essentially save a bleeding company, but then two, they've now got serious allegations that potentially could come out. And that's where I do recommend go listen to Andy Stump's podcast. Very serious allegations potentially could be coming out very soon. Now, all of this news and all of these allegations have come out with the whole global situation going on right now, meaning that not only do they have to figure out all the problems within the company itself, but the games were already up in the air as it was because of the whole lockdown that happened. How are they going to put it on safely? All of that. So this just, in my opinion, makes it even more of a slim chance that the games will happen this year. Now, this isn't all completely bad news. As we've talked before in the last couple of videos having to do with all this news is, CrossFit, the company, does not make up the community. The CrossFit, the company, has just been a catalyst, but now we have so many other great things. I know many of you this weekend are watching the Rogue Invitational. At least what I've seen so far, it's been a very kind of smooth setup that's been put on very well, having to do even with the whole situation going on right now, the global situation. So, as a community, I think we're going to be fine. It's just going to be very interesting to see what happens with the 2020 games, if they actually happen, how they happen, all of that. I want to know from you, do you think the games even should happen this year? Or do you think CrossFit just needs to really clean slate, fix what they've got going on in-house? Also, leave a comment. If you've listened to this podcast, what do you think about the allegations? Do you think CrossFit can move past this? Because, frankly, for me, I think now, as long as Greg Glassman is attached to the company and he owns 100% of the company, I don't see a way they can get past now these allegations as well as the news that came out this last week. But drop a comment down below letting me know what you guys think. Now, my predictions for this weekend with the Rogue Invitational, with Matt Fraser being out due to injury and not being able to train at 100% to where he felt comfortable competing, I really think that the men is going to be close between Noah Olson and Pat Vellner. I think it's going to be crazy to watch them. On the women's side, I think it's going to come down to Tia Toomey and Sarah Sigmundsdottir, although I do think Cara Saunders, she could be inching her way up to the top two, but I see that being kind of your women's podium with Tia taking overall. I think she's going to hold it once again. Our games champion, Rogue Invitational champion last year, all of that. But those are my predictions. Let me know what you guys think. Who's going to take this weekend with the Rogue Invitational? I'm sure it's going to be fun to watch this weekend unfold. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm definitely going to be bringing you more as more and more news comes out. Seems like every couple of days we get more news. Hopefully we get some good news soon. I hope you all enjoy the Rogue Invitational this weekend. If you could, please go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Leave any comments or questions down below. Be happy, be positive, be powerful. Have a great rest of your day.